If your home lab has reached the point where you've got Proxmox, reverse proxy, DNS filtering, an RSS reader, and an NVR, and more, and you're still bookmarking things like it's 2007, you have better things to do. Halo 3 just released. The first iPhone just came out.
You zoom in or zoom out by pinching or unpinching with your fingers. It's spectacular.
Sopranos aired its final episode.
Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
We were in better times back then. Today we're fixing that. So we're standing up homepage, a clean, fresh start page that becomes your single pane of glass for the lab with real widgets for things like Proxmox, Fresh RSS, AdGuard, Uptime Kuma, glances, just a few things that we're gonna highlight today, and a slew of others. We'll kind of go through those at a high level, see what they offer, but I'm also gonna show you Docker auto discovery, so you're not handwriting YAML files every single container that you wanna implement. Homepage supports both YAML config and Docker label discovery. Howdy folks, Zach Berry back here with 45 Home Lab, and this is going to be a practical setup. We're going to be deploying homepage with Docker Compose, lock it down properly using a Docker Socket Proxy, and then I'll show you the three main config files that kind of work together to bring it all together. Now, that's going to be the Settings.yaml for the UI and the layout, the Services.yaml for your tiles and your service widgets, and the widgets.yaml for the top bar that you're going to see in the video that we have. So it'll show the logo, CPU, search, all that stuff. Now, let's get it deployed, let's get into things. But before we do that, two big things. So before we get started, we hit 7K subs. So when Joe and I first started teaming up for these videos about 9 months ago, I really didn't expect us to go from under 1K subs to over 7K. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And second, we have new merch. So I was surprised with this the other day. They were like, hey, we got something new, and absolutely love it. I'm not a big fan of graphic t-shirts myself, but when it comes to it's me on a mug, come on. So the store, this is gonna be on the store possibly by the time we put this out. So be sure to check that out to get your official 45 Home Lab mustache mug t-shirt, whatever they're gonna call it. So let's get into it. So I wanted to try something a bit different with this one. Instead of me just showing, how to install it in a Docker container, or give a brief overview and kind of go over the GUI, I wanted to dive into what each file is doing, each segment, and give kind of a full understanding. And let me know what you think of this style in the comments down below. Was it informative? Did it make sense? Was it too wordy and just a bunch of word soup? Let me know, I'd love to hear. So let's take an example here. We have our HL15 2.0. It's got 15 drive bays for HDDs, SSDs, or a mix of the two, up to a terabyte of RAM, even though who can afford that nowadays? 32 cores, 64 threads, and optional knock to a fans for whisper quiet operation, and in a North American made powder-coated steel chassis. So first things first, homepage is just a container, but the way we deploy it is really gonna matter here. Now, the Compose stack is 2 services, or 3 in my case, because I have glances at the bottom. That's going to be another container we're gonna use. Not related to exactly what we're doing, but I just decided to throw it in there. But with that out of the way, the other part is Docker Proxy. So we have homepage, which is the dashboard, of course, and then that proxy, it's a lockdown sort of middleman, think of it, that is going to talk to Docker without monitoring the raw Docker socket inside of homepage. Now, let's take a look here, and we're gonna look first at our environment handling. So obviously we have our container here. This is just pointing to our environment file that's going to have, you're gonna keep things like your API keys, your URLs, your tokens, and anything that you don't want hard-coded into the YAML file itself. Then inside of that environment, you're gonna have your important bits. So things like, this is your don't break when I access in different ways setting, your PUID and PGID, so your user and group. This is gonna run homepage as your user. The Docker host, which is the one that we have it deployed on, which is the same as homepage at port 2375. And this is going to tell homepage that when you actually need Docker info, don't use a local socket, talk to the proxy container. And port 3009 and 3000, so you're going to access homepage at port 3009, but inside of the container, it's accessing via port 3000. Now, this is where I find a lot of people get confused, especially myself, to be honest. Now, this is the config portion of it. So let's take a look here at our volumes. So if we're looking at our config icons, app public icons, and :RO, read only, this is where your settings, your services, your widget YAMLs are going to live, and they're kind of the real brain of everything. And then you have your app public images, read only. Those are static assets, so your icons, custom wallpaper, they go here, and you serve them at /icon/images, etc. Or if you define them as something else. Now, then you've got your actual host mounts. So these three little ones right here, and these don't do really anything magically by themselves, but they're useful if you want, disk widgets, file system widgets, anything that points to, any sort of real storage paths. And then we just have our restart policy. So unless stopped, restart it, pretty standard within a Docker container. Now, same thing for Docker Proxy. Let's take a quick look at that one there. The image that it's pulling down, you can see that there, name of it, and restart policy set again. And then our environment is where things get a bit interesting. So now the second container, that would be Docker Proxy, and that's going to be your way of homepage talking to Docker and vice versa. So you can do that auto discovery and stuff that we're going to talk about. Now, your proxy enables things like, let's say, container discovery, container status widget, status version info, networks, images, volumes, visibility, events for any sort of live updates. And these are controlled by these right here. So that'd be our containers, info, images, network, services, tasks, events, volume, system, and version. So quite a few things there, and so on and so on. But the only socket mount inside of the proxy is going to be at volumes right here. And then, as I mentioned, we have our glances container. Not important to this video here, but it's just another container to display what we actually have within homepage itself. Now, the big picture of kind of everything that we've shown so far is you're going to browse to either the URL, the IP, whatever you have set up, as we can see here. And let's see, homepage is going to read the config from ./config. Homepage queries Docker at HTTP, Docker Proxy, :2375. And Docker Proxy talks to the real Docker socket, but only exposes the API sections. So it's going to be quite a bit safer, quite a bit more secure, and it's clean and it scales. Now, let's take a look at those config files that I mentioned. So we'll get out of our container here. I won't go through the whole process of bringing up the container and all that, because you've seen that a million times before. We'll include the documentation, which, take a quick look at their documentation a bit here, but it's laid out very, very well. But next part we'll go over are those three YAML files. So those are going to be in config. So let's just do ls.al here. Actually, we'll clean this up a bit. So let's go to config. There we go. And there we go. We can see we'll have quite a few, but the ones that we're going to focus on that will get us up and running are the settings, services, and widgets YAML. So settings controls that site-wide UI, and the layout rules kind of, as you can see here, how we have system monitoring, tools collection core, virtualization cluster, and the services, so that controls the tiles that you click and the widgets inside. And then the widgets are the top headers there, so where you can see CPU, 45 homelab, all that stuff there. So let's actually go and tie it all in together. Now, we'll start at the top and work our way down. So starting with the widgets, let's go into that file and see what we actually have. Widgets.yaml, you can see there's quite a bit here, but really the only things that I changed in this were the logo. So I added the 45 homelab logo. It is a bit washed out because of the image that I chose in the background being a bit darker, but it gets the point across. Then we just have our greeting is just a simple welcome, setting our size, resources, so CPU, memory, and our temp, and along with storage. And then we have resources, so our storage is over here. This is just a line. It's not like anything's missing. It's just kind of spacing it out, leaving a space there if we do want to add anything else. And then we can add a little bit more stuff for our resources, how we want them to behave, our date and time, a search function. So we have we have Google here. You can do DuckDuckGo, Bing, anything really that is compatible. So then we have our location here. So we can have it set to our geographic location by latitude and longitude. I didn't go through that portion right now, but it is there and it is available for you. All right, next up we have our settings.yaml here. So this is first going to start with just the basic site settings. So I have it called Perilab at homepage. So we can see here that is the actual name of everything. If we go to our language, we have our dark theme, color, slate, and a lot of these things that you can change in the YAML file. You don't have to restart the container, anything like that. So let's actually just do that quickly. So I'll vim into that. Now, of course, there's going to be some things that you are going to have to restart it for. I believe if you change the background image, that will require a restart of the container, but that's just because of how some of the backend stuff behaves. But let's go in here and we'll change this to what's one of the colors now that were available. I know amber was one of them, which I was not a big fan of, and apologies if this is going to be too bright for some people, but we'll go here, and then all we do is click anywheres and change this up. Actually, doesn't look too bad with that image, but we'll go back, we'll change that back to slate so I can actually go through the image here. So slate and WQ, there we go. And now we're back to it. So once we have that, we have our color, we have our header style. So there's a bunch of different, this is just the basic one that came with it. In the documentation, there are other ways to kind of shape and make it your own. Our status styles, so we have these green dots here that show glances, if it's up, Uptime Kuma, things like that. Then going down into our make use of more screen. So we have our full width, our max group columns. So basically how big all of these things are going to be, how much space they take up. Our background. So again, you can pull one from online just if like from Upsplash or anything. I just have a local one that I'm sourcing here. We have our blur, so we have it set to small, so it's not too much. Then we have a favicon here. So if we go up here, we can see a little 45 homelab logo right here. And then our layout. So this is basically how things are going to look here. So we have our home tab here. You can have other sort of tabs themselves. So you can have home, you can have a status one, however you want to do it. I kind of kept everything all in one now, just until I build it out a bit more. But you can see where we have set our amount of columns. We can set our icon. So it uses material, simple icons that I think it pulls from quite a few here. You just have to look at what the name is, plug it in, and then it should take that up. But we can see we have our system monitoring tab here and our tools collection. And then we have virtualization down here, core. Now, some of these didn't pop up within here because of either Docker auto discovery or because we've set them somewhere else, like in the Services.yaml. Now, speaking of that Services.yaml, that's the last one we'll take a look at here. So quit U and then clear, make things a bit easier. Boom, and cat services. So this looks a little insane because it is all kind of scrunched up here. It is only one line of asterisk, I can't say that word. One line of comments, but we can see here, I just have them sectioned off here. So just to prove I'm not an insane person who did 3 lines of comments. A little bit better there. Now we have our tools collection up top. We have Portainer. So we have that here and our tools collection. So this is going through, we'll start with glances here. So we have our icon set, our href. So that is using our environment variables. So we don't have anything, plainly in our YAML. Our port here, then the container itself. We're taking the container name. So if we do a Docker PS, we can see that we have glances once I actually level this out a bit. So if we go down and glances right here, and a little hard to see just because it is scrunched up, but then same thing with Uptime Kuma. So basically once you set one of these, they are going to be pretty cut and dry. Like obviously there's going to be some extra parameters that you can add. There's going to be some things that are specific to those specific containers and what they display in homepage. But to get it basically running, you're just going to put in a location. So system monitoring, you're going to give it a name, glances, icon, href. So just basically where it is pulling that information from, the name, description. And if you want to add an actual widget for it, that would be glances, URL again, so homepage variable. That is just taking our local IP, so 10.20.0.140, and then the port and version 4, CPU, so that kind of information here. Now, how do you know that you would add this kind of information? That'd be in the documentation. So if we go, this would be a good chance to actually show off homepage's documentation. So this would be a good part to actually look at the homepage documentation. So if we go in, we can see homepage here. It shows us kind of what homepage is capable of, obviously a bit more than what I have set up at the moment. That's the good thing. Once you have it set up initially, you can kind of build incrementally and easily from that standing point as you add more services, more containers, more things that you want to monitor or access. Now, we can go to our installation, but we won't cover that in too much detail. Configuration here. So I like that it does mention that the YAML files, they're very sensitive to indentation because yes, they are. Widgets here. Now, this is kind of where I want to highlight the amount of things that they have built in where you can add a widget to, you can add services. You can go through this kind of quickly here, but yeah, there's quite a bit. Home Assistant, Comga, Minecraft, MikroTik servers, speed test, Plex, Jellyfin, all kinds of things here. I mean, it just keeps going and going. And Proxmox backup server, Qubit torrent, Sonar, Tailscale, Headscale too, which I recently covered briefly. But tons of things that you can add here. And if we go into one like, let's take a look at Fresh RSS, because we have one of those actually set up. It gives us an actual link to go and look and learn more about Fresh RSS and the whole project, everything, enabling the API. So it's going to be different on how homepage communicates to your actual container, your service, etc. But this is going to be the basic way that you'd set it up. And because of this one, we have auto discovery set up. So it makes things like adding these to homepage a breeze. Now, won't go too much into detail here, but let's go back to our homepage. So back into our Services.yaml, we can see our tool collection here. We only have one thing in there at the moment, using our environment variables again, just to kind of keep everything repeatable and neat and secure. Mind you, it is in another file, which is not the most secure, but that's neither here nor there. But you can see here that these things do share a lot of things that are very similar. So not quite copy and paste, but very, very easy to, reiterate over and over again. And then for our Proxmox here, is a little bit more to it, but nothing too crazy. Now, this isn't just a dashboard, just to kind of view things, see how they are. You can actually click on them, interact with them. So glances, for instance, we can take a look at that instead of going into an SSH session. We can see it all right here live in the web browser here. Same thing with Uptime Kuma. We can log in. I don't remember my password at the moment because I'm at a different computer, but we'll go into our Proxmox here. So we can go to one of our nodes, take a look, and it lets us into our Proxmox. Now, you can set it up in a way, here it's opening in the same page, which is not ideal for some people. You can have it open up into a new window, into a new tab. This is just the basic, here you go, change it as you will sort of thing. And then we can jump into a few other things here. So let's talk about the auto discovery. So this was one that was a big time saver. It helped a lot. And this is why we deployed that Docker proxy with our homepage Docker Compose. This is great when you want things like consistency and version control. But once your lab grows, adding every single container, like as you can see here, these ones I did all by hand, it becomes a little bit cumbersome. So homepage can also do that auto discovery by using something called Docker labels. So for simple tile links that are going to go to things like Fresh RSS, for instance, that is where you can do a label. And we'll actually look at our Fresh RSS and we'll clear this. We'll go back. cd ... All right, so now going into that Docker auto discovery, when we actually deploy our container, we can deploy it as we usually would. So up until here, this was just a plain one that I got from the Fresh RSS website. Then you're gonna add your labels here. So you're gonna add it to the homepage group. So you can change this to whatever you want. The homepage name, so Fresh RSS. It's basically everything you see here in our actual label is what your label is doing in homepage. So it has our IP, everything like that. Restart and less stop, that's not changing. And let's actually go in and click that now. So the good thing about this is that when we had all deployed it before, you had to add each thing over and over again. With this, you're literally just doing the bare minimum for your Docker container, and then you're just throwing that label on the end of it and it spins it up there. You don't have to go into each individual YAML file, which is great. So once we do that, and it is something that this is no extra sort of configuration or anything. It is just put it in there, you're off to the races. So, and here we can see all of my fresh RSS feed. That is kind of homepage, kind of at a glance there. Could get more in-depth in here, but as you can see, there is so much that you can do with it, from the widgets, Services.yamls, the configuration. This could be an entire series in itself, to be honest. But with that, we'll kind of go to the closing now, wrap things up. I'll see you in a few minutes. And that's homepage in a nutshell. So the 45 homelab way, you kind of see we set it up kind of to be our own there, but you can set it up any way you want, and it has enough automation and adding new services that it doesn't become, you know, a second job. But with that said, if you want to see everything that we have on offer, head on over to store.45homelab.com. All of our socials and the projects we discussed today will be down in the comments below. If you want to see more deep dives like this, Proxmox, ZFS, self-hosted tools, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. See ya.
Let's go. Cuckoo. Cuckoo.